Welcome to the Ingram Micro Cloud Monthly Podcast. We are all Microsoft SureStep BDMs working across the Microsoft Cloud stack. My name is Martyn Hall, and I will allow my colleagues to introduce themselves now.
My name's Nicola Miller, and I am the Modern Workplace BDM for the SureStep program.
And my name's Mike Markey, and I'm also the BDM, or one of the BDMs on the Modern Workplace. And apparently this year I've been a good boy, so he's saying.
I don't know about that.
My name is Armando Rodriguez. I'm also a BDM for the SureStep program, and I'm new. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Armando. And I'm feeling very much outnumbered right now.
Yes, so you should do as well.
I know.
Modern
Nicola,
Workplace is dominating the world.
Nicola, do you want to tell everyone a bit about SureStep, please?
Sure, no worries. So as I say, we all work for the SureStep program, and the SureStep is a global program brought to you from Microsoft. And the team even consists of 5 members. So we have one vacant one today, which is John Papadakis. So Martyn is going to be stepping in for John. Is going to do his best Azure. So John works in the Azure. Martyn Hall works in Dynamics. Myself, Mike, and Armando all work in Modern Workplace on behalf of Ingram Micro. And essentially our role is to enable partners by supporting them through their Microsoft journey. And we kind of act in a parachute motion. I'm doing really well today, so this is going to be a funny one. By dropping in, not only to support with sales opportunities, but we can also deliver training and enable you to be more efficient and sell more. And I've not been on the eggnog, not just yet.
The mulled wine.
That I cannot confirm nor deny.
And as you can see, we are very much getting into the Christmas spirit with things. Before we actually kick off with some updates from Microsoft, I am told we have some really funny Christmas jokes to go through.
Well, he has been chuckling away to himself while he's been looking at them, so I expect some good ones here.
So these are our listeners, viewers from around the world, or just the North Pole, who've been submitting us these this week. So we'll kick off with, why are Christmas trees so bad at sewing?
Because they've got too many needles.
Close, they're always dropping their needles. There's plenty more where that come from. So how do we want to start it? Which cloud do we want to go? Do we want to cover Isvs first?
Are we only doing one? I thought you had a whole collection of them. Is that just one?
We'll go through as we.
Oh, okay. You're gonna drop them in every randomly now and again.
A little bit of a palate cleanser from the updates, is it?
Squeeze a lemon, yeah.
Well, okay. So I'll tell you what. Then this month we are going to cover off all the usual community call updates as we normally do. Our shared topic where we're going to have a little bit of discussion is going to be around digital skills gap. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how businesses in general can help bring in the next generation of IT professionals, essentially, which would be cool. So I tell you what, we'll use that digital skills gap as a piece for us to discuss last of all. Let's do an update on individual clouds. Yes, let's let Isvs go first with Azure, because I had an amazing update from the call. It looks like Azure Synapse, some updates on there from the call. I'd love to be able to tell you what it is, but I can't. But if you want to get in touch with John Papadakis to run through it, he's a really good guy to run through anything technical like that. And the other piece was there was some updates on SQL Server 2022. Done.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it, apparently. I didn't watch the call, so I can't say, or hand on heart, that was it. But
that's your synopsis of the Azure.
That's my roundup of the community call.
Well,
basically, if you want them all.
I was going to say, since we've finished one cloud already, it's time for another Christmas joke, isn't it? So, why is everyone thirsty at the North Pole?
Don't know.
Noel. Where'd you get it?
Noel.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Getting worse.
God. These are like proper dad jokes.
Oh yeah,
Oh my lord, that's a terrible one, I'm afraid to say.
it is. So that one's from Anonymous at Anonymous Place.
I'm surprised nobody wants to put their name against that.
So,
Shall we sort of make it a bit more interesting and talk modern workplace then, instead of
Wow,
that Christmas joke?
You said about being interested, and clearly us three are very interesting. Obviously, we've had strength and depth in our team as well, because now we've got Armando as well.
Hi to you all. Again.
Sorry, Mike. So what's been going on with modern workplace on the call this month?
So I think kicking it off with tradition, as we are kind of Christmassy this way, it'd be wrong to break. So we always like to bring a statistic to modern work, and with the statistic this time round, so Microsoft are really looking at strengthening the IoT space and like looking at that zero trust model again, kind of building upon all of the requirements. Kind of, authenticating devices, maintaining least privilege access to mitigate blast radius, etc. But what they actually did, Microsoft have ran a kind of a study over a 45-day period. They've came to the conclusion, it's been no surprise to many of us, but default passwords cause problems. So the word admin was found in IoT passwords over a 45-day period. Can we guess how many times that word was found?
Percentage-wise or number?
A number.
10,000 times.
I'll give you a clue. It's a lot more than 10,000.
Oh my word!
I wanted to guess something a little bit lower that I'd be like, yes, it's worrying, but it's not that bad.
150,000.
So I'll give you the answer. It's more than 150,000, and it's more than 10 plus 150,000 together. It's 20 million times the word admin was found over a 45-day period in the IoT password space. Which is
so. Just a question on that: is that admin just plain text admin, or is that a combination of alphanumeric?
Just literally the word admin.
That's just plain text.
Yeah, just lowercase, plain text, admin. It doesn't say if it was embodied within kind of numerical characters, before or after special characters, but literally the word admin was in there. And so, really, really basic. But like case in point this weekend, actually, personal story on default passwords. I managed to actually get into a Disney Plus account of my sister's. It was on my television, so she'd already logged in. And with that, I literally just put in things I knew about her, and it was a default thing that I'd got in on. So I had a little nice conversation this Saturday evening.
I can imagine how that conversation went.
Yeah, she didn't listen to it one bit. But yeah, it just shows, really start thinking about those passwords and your security, because the security starts with level 1 being the user. So yeah, absolutely.
So I've got a question on that then. I mean, it's a great report for Microsoft to do that and to identify that there's a huge security risk out there. What can partners do to mitigate that?
The first point protocol would be employing MFA within it, because if you're having someone try to kind of password attack or password spray, if they do get that right password and it's not actually you trying to get into the device, at least I've got my phone on me which tells me user X is trying to log into such a device, and there's there. I think Nicola, we were speaking about it the other day in Windows Hello.
Yep.
So yeah, Windows Hello is absolutely huge now, and it's continuing to grow with Windows 11. Obviously things aren't continuing to grow, still have 10 of them, but it's absolutely employing that also is kind of just the biometrics level on top of.
I think it's just security is such a prevalent conversation at the minute anyway. The security threat is changing day by day, in terms of how that threat happens. And I think one thing that we just need to be mindful of is that, SMBs are really the sitting duck. They're the open target. Enterprise have, they've kind of learnt their lesson, not to MFA or anything along those lines. So when it comes down to it, I think that certainly SMB sector really need to kind of, and the SMEs as well, not, let's not be agnostic, just to the SMBs and SMEs. But in terms of that, I know that cost is very, very important to people at the moment. However, in terms of when it comes down to it, you could be losing, a lot. And 66% of SMBs have had a breach, or know someone that's had a breach, and that's quite a high number. And I think roughly the actual the dollar price is $108,000. Is roughly the cost of these breaches. For £5 a month or something along those lines, to put a little bit of belts and braces on, it's really, and essentially it's a small price to pay and something that could happen. And as I say, Enterprise seems to have had it sorted. They've learnt the lesson. They've had their fingers burnt, and people only tend to do it once their fingers have been burnt. So good lesson in there, I'd say.
Yeah.
For a small price, you could save a fortune.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
It's the difference between a business surviving and a business going under, if they should be victim of a cyber attack.
Correct.
So
True.
yeah, that is today's
statistic. There you are, you see. We love a good statistic, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So, but Nicola, we've had a product launch this month, which kind of flew under the radar.
It did rather. I think the thing is with at the minute, we've got a lot going on with NCE. A lot of people have got their eyes on what's going on. Obviously, we had Defender for Business last month as well.
Yeah.
But the other one is Teams Essentials.
Yeah.
So and this is a great point for Microsoft to be able to spread that Teams love. 175 million active daily users currently, and to make this Business Essentials license around, I think in terms of what it does, it gives the offering, if anybody is on an on-premise or on an Exchange Online or something along those lines, it gives that kind of breadth that people be able to get into, have that Teams experience. So and it's good, £3 per month.
Yeah.
You look at other ones, you look at sort of like the competitors, you get 10 gigs of cloud storage, you can have up to 300 participants in a meeting, you can have a meeting up to 30 hours if you really, really want, you know what I mean? We're not capped at any minutes. So yeah, I think it's such a great product that has been released, and as you say, it's kind of gone very quiet really. It's kind of just been snuck out there.
So I think it's important to note as well, like that the SMBs are requiring meeting space, and one of the huge reasons, and I completely get it, why Microsoft have decided to bring out just a Teams product. If you look at the case in point, going back a couple of years, if I was to say to yourself, Armando, go and look online for it, your answer would probably be, I'll just Google it. It's become a household name.
Yep.
So with kind of meeting spaces now, the word Teams is actually being searched for on the internet more than Office 365 or more than Microsoft 365. So Microsoft recognized that there was a need for Teams because that many people were searching it. They did say a statistic, but I can't remember it, but it was in the millions. But it just showed, Microsoft listened to the feedback and what's actually wanted out there, which I think is pretty cool, actually, considering, they've got that many fingers in different pies and things. So I think it's really cool.
I think so as well, and I think in terms of when you move on to the business voice as well, obviously that's changing. So that's going to be renamed in March. So business voice is not going to be business voice as we know it. However, they're going to repackage it and call it Teams Phone. So same thing, basically you can use it for enterprise and SMB rather than having those two split SKUs we have at the moment. Basically that's all being wrapped up into one.
Someone's got some Christmas music of a washing machine in the background there.
This is what you get for working from home, you see. It'll go on for quite a while as well.
Yeah, what I like about the business voice going into the Teams Phone with calling is that yes, they've gone across SMB plus enterprise space. Obviously, you still have phone system, which you'll need to bolt on the minutes, an E5 licensing, Microsoft 365 E5, that is. But the price has reduced a little bit as well. So it's gone from $20 for kind of your full-blown Teams calling, system, down to 15, and then the other bits have reduced as well, which is really, really fascinating to see. So January 1st, that product's out. March sometime, Business Voice begins to phase out itself. What we do like though, and I know it was raised on the call, and we speak about it a lot with our partners, and probably yourselves who are listening, watching today, is around the Business Voice incentive. These SKUs will be added to that incentive, so you can continue to transact, you can continue to earn and seek out that opportunity. Don't have to be stressed that it's coming to a close in March for Business Voice. I think looking at the workloads though, the last piece that I'd probably want to add.
The OSUs.
Yeah, so looking at incentive programs, Microsoft have recognised, and I've seen this as well, to be fair, following on from conversations, that yes, you'd sign up for the CSP and direct reseller incentive because you get immediate earnings out of that. Yes, you'd sign up for such an incentive for Business Premium, say, for instance, the local one at the moment, because you'd get earnings out of that. But for actually going through being able to attribute your kind of work that you're doing with a customer, you're not getting recognised for that piece of driving a workload. And that's where the online services usage, OSU, from Microsoft 365, and I know, Martyn, you've got a very similar one in Dynamics, haven't you? That's where that comes into play. I think that is really key to kind of, becoming stickier with your customer.
Certainly this sticks to Teams. I mean, I know in the community call they covered off really the main security aspects of it. So for instance, like Intune, etc. You have got Teams Voice, those kind of things. So it starts at 149 users. So you've got quite a, so if you've got sort of a larger customer, for instance, that has at least 149 seats and you're deploying, they might have come from an on-premise or something along those lines. You might be deploying like Intune. We're kind of back at home again, essentially working. So, you've kind of got your people that are bringing their own devices to work. Businesses have expanded. I know we hear the negative connotations that have gone on through the pandemic, but essentially, businesses have grown through pandemic. So in terms of, businesses that have expanded, and they may have new startups, etc., that have got bring your own device, Intune and stuff along those lines, they do provide powerful platforms to be able to manage those endpoints. If you do have any questions along it, we've done it before, and I think one of the interesting points is that we've always put it down to the fact that only one partner, claimant partner record, can do it. But per workload, you can actually have multiple. But you just got to be mindful when it comes down to that. And there's got to be a lot of communication that goes on. But Microsoft will look into it if it does go into a dispute. So, it hasn't got to be just one. It can be, it could be. So, for instance, like with Dynamics, you partner to partner quite a lot. But then in Modern Workplace, you may be doing that Modern Workplace workload. So when it comes down to it, there's plenty of opportunity for everyone. And certainly if you are an expert in your field, certainly, with Dynamics, etc., then, it's a real good way of topping up those incentives to a certain point. And if you are pushing the right thing, are pushing those right workloads, doing the right thing for the customer, then, it's good that Microsoft are rewarding you for that.
I think this will become a bit more apparent when MCI incentives sort of take over as well, because if you've, I tend to pay attention to the detail. I don't know if anyone's noticed before.
Never.
But there's never
realised it. I didn't realise that you
were hidden it so well before then.
I didn't realise you're so analytical, Martyn.
But there's a list of workshops under Modern Work that you can claim additional incentives against. Now, they haven't said how much you can get for them or what the actual output should be from these workshops, but on a dynamic standpoint, we've had this available for quite some time, and it's under ESIF and customer investment funding, and you can literally run a sort of pilot and you get some funding towards it, depending on the ROI, so how much the licensing is worth. So it sounds very similar that the modern work is going to align itself more to that. And I think you're right. It depends what partners are specialists in on what they would deliver for end customers. And there is going to be a point where there'll be almost a P2P play where you might have two modern work partners within the same end customer for very different reasons, but all under modern work.
I think you'll find a lot of this is that, partners come to a, 365 to a certain point. They come to a point and there's a crossroads. So they go really essentially down the Teams route, encapsulate that whole Teams message, or do they go down the security route? And if you're going down the security route, then you're going down many different rabbit holes essentially, because there's lots of different places that you can go with it. So even though in modern work, there's a lot of sort of expertise in those fields that are doing certain project works or stuff along those lines. We've got some very, very capable partners that we work with, and the project work that they make and build is absolutely fascinating, and they utilize this tool to actually get that deployment and get those workloads going.
So I think the message there, if you do want to learn more about how to associate yourselves to a customer's workload, reach out to any of us and we can walk you through what that process looks like and kind of demonstrate what the opportunity is for yourself as well.
Excellent.
I think that's it, isn't it?
That for me brings close to modern work for this month. I don't know about
yourself. Do we get another joke?
Do get another joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
You sounded a little bit disappointed then, going, yeah, you do.
We've got some decent ones this time.
So I've got 3 left. Someone pick a number, 1, 2, or 3.
2.
2. Oh, this is my favourite one. This one actually.
This is one I was chuckling at earlier.
Yeah. How did Mary and Joseph know that Jesus was 8 pound 2 ounce when he was born? He had a way in a manger.
Oh Lord. Where's that taxi?
And that's your best one.
I like
think that more says about his sense of humour than anything else.
Oh dear.
This year's taken a toll.
I'm not sure it's getting much better.
No. So we've got 2 more to go. So
one
more.
Shall we move on to
Go on, wait.
BizApps then?
Yes.
Lighten the mood.
Oh yeah.
So the BizApps community call, there is quite a bit that they did go through. I'm going to try and rattle through it in a bit more of a lighter way. Last month, do you remember us talking about Power Apps pay as you go?
Vaguely.
No. You remember something about pay as you go, and that was
it.
So Power Apps, normally you'd license it per user or you'd license it as a per app. Now, we discussed last month how you would utilize a pay as you go method. So the community call went into that in quite some detail, and it was talking about use cases where per app, for instance, would be for an app that you're using pretty much day in, day out. Great. It makes more sense to have that when it's costed per app. If you use pay as you go per app, you're essentially saying, well, yeah, I'm not going to use it all the time, so it's going to be a lot cheaper overall. But if you're using it day in, day out, per app is actually the cheaper option. So just a little bit of how you position that to an end customer. One note that did come out of it, though, was if you're licensing the pay as you go option, you can't license a per app in the same environment.
Right.
So it's kind of picking one or the other.
Yep.
Which for me, I found it quite interesting because it's notable. It's something that a lot of businesses are picking up on, is to go down a power app route, and it could cause some issues. The pay-as-you-go method is fantastic from a consumption point of view because it's just going to be easier to manage for most businesses. There were some updates regarding RURs. Just reminding people, just check what RURs you've got, what you're using, which licenses are being deprecated because you won't be able to use them for much longer. They are aware of it and they are updating the list. I don't know if that came across on the Modern Work call, actually.
No,
No.
I was going to ask you actually when you said that. Are there going to be new ones that are going to be added? And
there was no mention of any new ones that are going to be added. Just that it is a list that's in review.
It'd be
which
really
you'd
good if we can
expect.
get some more Dynamics licenses, say for instance on the the modern workplace side, because I think Dynamics seems to sometimes scare people on the modern workplace side because I think it's overcomplicated. However, they had that free license in there would actually, even if we had one,
Yeah.
it would kind of let them have a little tinker, because we know that technically minded people like to have a look and they like to kind of get hands on with stuff that time. So like it'd be quite nice if we could actually have that, I would say.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you want to have a little tinker, you don't necessarily need your IURs to do that. So this is where we've talked about it multiple times in the past, where we're talking about CDX,
Yep.
customer demo experiences. So if you want to create a tenant on there, you can create a tenant. You can play around with it. You can get 90-day tenants. You can get an annual tenant on there. So for a business, if you're going to tinker, normally you get that done within 90 days if you're serious about having a look at something. So that would be my first port of call, to say go and have a look at that. There were some updates on the BizApps call about CDX, in fact, and that's to say that there have been some updated demos on there as well. So the most notable recent one is Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit FY22. So there's a new FY22 nonprofit Microsoft Cloud on there, so you can have a look at that and see what you get as a demo for, what you get in terms of licensing and what it does within that experience, without necessarily having to go and buy it. Now, if you're working in the non-profit space, that's awesome, because you get an idea of what you're going to be positioning for your customers. It's not an expense that you have to outlay or ask your customer to pay for in order to demonstrate it. And you can get an idea, especially if you're thinking about adding professional services, what else you can extend and add towards the non-profit to make it more suitable for your end customers as well. So anyone who's listening on the call, I really would suggest checking out the CDX environments. They are really good to use. You get some that are really configurable, where it's a tenant and you can mess around with it as much as you want. You get some that are asset only. It's generally PowerPoints that you can run through. You can get some that are called demo mates as well, which are like, it's an interactive slideshow pretty much that will look and feel like an environment. But it's just click through. There's a script to go with it, so you can get an experience of what that is without actually having that tenant. There was some talk about ISVs that followed that, and as you can see, it's kind of a pattern here. We're talking about extending capabilities, moving into the ISV space. I mean, Microsoft are encouraging more and more partners to develop their own IP and share it and sell it to end customers, because they recognize that Microsoft can't fill all the gaps of businesses.
Yeah,
they just can't. So invite partners to extend the capabilities of Dynamics, especially, and then you're looking at really good solutions for things like the automotive industry, things like non-profit, things like healthcare. There's some really good ISV add-ons to it. Now, quick stat for you guys.
Oh, we got some statistics.
We have got a statistic. So what they did share is the revenue potential for ISVs over the next, I think they said in the next 6 years, but they took a snapshot in 2025. What do you think the revenue potential is of ISVs globally?
Globally.
So we're talking big number.
Yeah.
3 trillion, not quite that big.
I was going to say that's a quite a sizable amount. That is.
Yeah.
Let's go for $1 trillion then.
No, not $1 trillion. It's still lower than that.
4
we're talking
billion.
Low code, no code was 54 billion in the next 3 years.
Ooh.
So that's talking about low code app development.
500 billion.
So it's 100 billion by ISVs.
I said 56 billion. Does that mean I'm supposed to?
You were pretty close. You were pretty close.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, if you're adding that to things like low code, no code app development as well, you're looking at some really big numbers overall.
Yeah.
But it's a massive opportunity. If you're just starting out in the Dynamics world, then think about how you can develop your own IP in a specific vertical, because the opportunities are out there.
Yeah.
And Appsource was something they also talked about. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Appsource.
Not really.
So
Not
think of
even.
Appsource as a store that you can buy add-ons and extensions for Dynamics.
Okay.
So if you wanted something that can do payroll with Business Central, you could add on to Business Central. It'll all be within Business Central, but you're able to do your payroll, which is not there as a default feature.
Right.
So there's a talk about Appsource, and Microsoft are trying to do more and more to support developers and give more margin back to partners. In so much as they've cut their fees. They used to do revenue share; it'd be like 20%. I mean, you've probably seen this in the news from a consumer basis, where Apple, for instance, were quite heavily criticized for this, where it was about 20% they were taking from app sales. Now it's reduced to, I can't remember what Apple's number is, but Microsoft have reduced it to about 3%. I say about, it is 3%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's the only revenue share they take from Appsource sales now.
It's pretty cool.
So if you're a Dynamics practice that you're thinking about becoming more of an ISV practice, there's still more margin available for you in that world now.
Yeah.
And if any ISVs are actually out listening to this, I mean, get in touch with us, because I'm more than happy to talk about ISV and Dynamics in general, because we're looking to do more and more with practices in the future as well. And if you need to be connected to the right people in Microsoft, we can help do that for you as well. And that was kind of our BizApps update for this month.
Quite a
I
big one.
quite like that one,
Yeah.
to be fair. I actually felt like I thought that was a good update.
Thank you.
That's all right.
I learned a lot today.
It's really good stuff.
To be fair, you talked about RUIs and all sorts of stuff. We didn't get that.
I know.
I feel like I'm being educated myself.
We had a full house on the on the BizApps team. We had like 4 or 5 different people speaking.
Crikey. Well, we normally get quite a few, to be fair. I think that's half the problem in modern workplace. There's just so much going on. It's like trying to it's like speed dating for modern workplace, basically.
Yeah. It's no, right. The time for a joke, I think. So
I can see him lining it up.
Yeah.
We've got
Searching.
this time 1 or 3.
1.
Why did the red-nosed reindeer help the old lady cross the road?
Don't know.
It would have been Rudolph in Not To.
Jeez. Where did you get these jokes from?
I'd say they were submitted to us by viewers and listeners of the.
Of course it was. Yeah.
They were.
I think that probably gives us the level of our viewers/listeners then.
I've got one for you. What's the elf's favourite type of music?
I don't know.
Rap.
Oh, Lord.
Oh.
Skills gap.
So
Skills gaps
moving on quickly.
In the joke department.
Oh well.
Moving on quickly, something we were all going to discuss, and I can't promise is going to be answers here, but it's a really good topic. It's probably close to our hearts, actually. And it's a digital skills gap.
Yep.
So it must have been about 3 months ago. We were talking about. We talked a little bit about IT skills gap, because we mentioned about the UK had the number of vacant jobs at that point was ranked. Number 1 was lorry drivers. Number 2 was NHS, and then number 3 was IT professionals. Which it kind of woke us up to thinking, oh my God, there's that much of a demand for.
Yeah.
I mean, not just our roles, but developers, security everything within IT. There's a huge gap at the moment. And it's been interesting. I sat on a call very recently. I say a call, it made it sound like I was actually involved in this. This was a webinar, roundtable-ish webinar. So don't think I was all important. I was watching something that was just put out there. But it was on the digital skills gap. Some really interesting stats that were thrown out, and we can have a discussion about them. As it stands at the moment, 82% of UK roles right now require digital skills.
Wow. Okay.
I've got a little bit of a summary for you to a certain point. If you want to play, so
Go
in
on,
2000, yeah, see you. So 2018, the biggest, the most in-demand skill was cloud computing. That's actually dropped down to number 2. Can anybody think what number 1 might be? This was 2020, mind you, so we're like maybe like slightly a year out roughly, but this is kind of one of the things that I was looking at when I was looking into this, because this is the conversation we probably have on a daily basis, I would say, certainly with my partners that I work with. So in 2020, can anybody think what number 1 would have overtaken cloud computing?
Teams administration.
Nope.
Data security.
Nope. You can have one go, Mike, and that's it. So you're nowhere near it.
I was just going to throw Milkman out there, but yeah, that's not.
So number 1 was blockchain.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so number 2 was cloud computing, and then it really goes into analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, UX design stayed the same. Then business analysis was new in, affiliated marketing, sales.
So stop at affiliated marketing a second. What number was that?
Number 7.
So the top 6 are all very, very hardcore IT skill sets, really.
Yeah, 100%. 8 is sales, and then number 9 was scientific computing. And the thing is, universities have actually come out and said that they can't fill the skills gap alone. They're gonna have to. They can't do it on themselves. Essentially, they're gonna have to need more people, and people that are in work to be able to kind of either train to become, to come these kind of within these certain in IT, essentially, regardless if that's solutions architect, or you say like in blockchain or cloud computing or whatever. But one thing I would probably say, I don't have an IT background to a certain point until I moved over a few years ago, and from that point, so one thing I would probably say is I wouldn't be overawed by it, because I think whenever people talked about they worked in IT, you thought that they had to have a load of qualifications or anything like that. You can reskill a bit further along if you come out of a college or university, so don't feel that it's not something that is unattainable for you to be able to do, because it genuinely is.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft show a good initiative in trying to help that skills gap at the moment, because I don't know if anyone's seen this week, they're actually putting on another Microsoft certification week, like they ran a couple of months ago. It's probably last quarter now. So that,
this week, today.
Yeah, so that for them is one a quarter for this half of financial year.
I think we'll probably see it as more of an annual thing, where November, December you'll get, because it's in terms of work, normal work is generally a little bit quieter because we're wrapping up towards the end of a year.
Yeah.
So we'll see more effort put into training at this point, and then come January, it's all hands on deck again, just going after completion of work.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Clearly your calendar's a little bit lighter than mine then.
Well.
I'm joking.
No comment.
Joking.
It's funny you say about the no experience in IT, Nicola, because it's recognised. It is. Microsoft are actually putting more of the onus on employers to upskill people. one of the things that came out of the this webinar piece was that I've forgotten. I've lost my place on it, but they basically said that more and more upskilling should be done in a workplace rather than higher education, because higher education, if you think of it, is going to be very, very technical or very focused around more of an abstract computer science degree, which is great for especially things like data engineers. That's great. But in terms of like Teams administration, building a voice practice, it's probably not so necessary.
And I think it's better to do it once you're doing it. Embedded learning at the end of the day, getting your hands on, being practical, doing it on a day-to-day basis will what you learn in year one in university, by the time you come out in year 2, 3, have a gap year maybe, possibly, and then go into the workplace, to a certain point. I can't remember what I did 2 hours ago, let alone what I did 2 years ago. So in that sense, it's, I think, in terms of these exams and stuff that Ingram give you as well, so in terms of exam vouchers and courses and stuff along those lines, everyone is trying to support with colleges, universities, Microsoft and Distas. So I think there's a lot of support around there, and if there is something that you are looking to get into, maybe you want to change cloud, for instance, you could want to move to Dynamics or Azure, have a conversation.
Come to Dynamics. Come to Dynamics, please.
I thought you said you want to go to Azure. Then I was like,
no.
No.
We have a massive skills gap within the Dynamics world, within biz apps in general. It was funny. There was one company, sort of an industry leader, talking on this webinar, and they said that the top roles that they're missing at the moment are data engineers. Great, that's Azure. Yeah, great. Power Apps and Power BI. It's like,
I would also say, when it comes down to IT, it's ever evolving. Yeah. So in terms of, just because you have, it could, because somebody may have gone to college or university or done whatever, that could be very, very quickly out of date, given new technology. For instance, cloud computing. For instance, if you are very much, if somebody was in the industry, say 5-10 years ago, they went out and then come back in again, they'd literally have to relearn how the whole wheel works again, because now you've got the hybrid, you've got cloud computing, then you've kind of got the arms and legs of Microsoft. So with Dynamics, with Teams, all these new workloads and programs and clouds, etc. It's an evolution. It's always evolving, and just because somebody's trained in it doesn't make it that's what you have to do. Granted that you may have to work a bit hard and kind of put your head down and concentrate on what you're doing, but it's not completely unattainable at all.
So here's a question for you guys then. I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah.
If you're a growing,
he wants to work for Dynamics.
If you're a growing MSP, for instance, it's not Dynamics. If you're growing an MSP, for instance, how would you maintain or grow your technical resource to meet your demand?
Knowing where I've come from and knowing what's there in place of a Microsoft Partner Center, I would probably be associating my users in the business to that, to monitor learning, but then looking at my business's focuses and future plans to try and see what's coming, because Microsoft.
So you're going to talk about building a talent pipeline there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Upskilling internally.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. There's nothing out there. I mean, the amount of partners I talk to on a day-to-day basis where they're looking for, for instance, like an MS 100 or a 500 or a 700, people just don't take these exams unless they're working within these industries. And when you do have these exams, then all of a sudden your LinkedIn gets that little bit, more kind of fuller in terms of inboxes and stuff along those lines. I mean, how many accreditations have you got, Martyn? I mean, you become a very shiny object that everyone wants, essentially. So, the upskilling piece, I think it's really interesting, because if you are upskilling from within, you already know that person.
Yeah.
So you know what they are, you know what their faux bars are. You know, we all have them to a certain point. You know what their strengths and weaknesses are, but you know what you're getting, and you are supporting, you know, this skills gap that we do have, by, you know, promoting that good culture within your company.
I'm glad you said about the upskilling from within, because could have fallen into the trap there of saying recruit.
Yeah.
But you guys have seen the same feedback as I have. And recruitment, yes, you can go and do it, but it's expensive. There's already a competitive market. I'll give you a dynamics example. If you're a Business Central functional consultant, then starting salaries that I see advertised most days, £80,000 in the UK. That's not an SA. That's a functional consultant. So it's very competitive on that front. Talking about building a talent pipeline, however, is much more attractive because you do know those people.
Yep.
And then you're filling from that bottom up. Yep. Because you're going to replace those roles, obviously. You're not just going to bring everyone up to the top and forget about everything else. You need to bring more people in at that lower level. And actually, one of the interesting points that was brought up is, where'd you go looking for these people then as well?
So now, with the world being in the state that it's in, it was local that I probably would have gone. It's now global because, you know, cloud computing, like I'm sat outside Santa's office right now. He's pointing out the thing to me, you know.
And I'm around the Christmas tree at the North Pole as well.
But in all seriousness, yeah, the talent pool is now global, because cloud computing's opened it up. So, yeah, I don't think you're restricted as to where you want to look now.
And what's really, really good about that, some of the knock-on effects it has, is you can start looking for a more diverse workforce as well.
Yeah.
Because if let's just say I'm going to pick on Reading, not necessarily London, but if you pick on Reading's traditionally quite similar in terms of demographics in there. I'm not going to step on any minds here, I hope.
I was going to say, where are you going with this one?
It's all very much the same sorts of people in Reading. If you want different views, you need to look outside of that. I'm gonna say you can go and look at South Africa. Go after more of Armando's friends, because he's friends with every South African. But you can bring another viewpoint into your business then.
Yeah.
There was also a really good point, and I think this is something we should promote more and more, is apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there will be a link on the bottom of the video, guys. There's a link for connecting employers to apprentices. It's a service that Microsoft put out there. It's called the Microsoft Apprenticeship Connector. I would really recommend anyone who is struggling to find talent in their for their organization to take a look at that, to get connected with apprentices. These are generally people that are going to show an aptitude and a desire to learn within the IT world, and generally they're the ones you can really invest some time in without having to spend that 80,000 starting salary to get them on board.
And correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Microsoft sponsor that as well, or give you some sponsorship?
Microsoft do sponsor that. I don't know the levels of sponsorship, but also take Microsoft out of the equation for a second. Have a look at some of the government initiatives as well.
Yep.
And I bet you there's some charities out there as well to help. So people who have been down on their luck, have had bad experiences before, they're looking for career changes. Invest some time in them, and there are some real gems out there to work with, and I guarantee they'll bring some really interesting views to your business.
And there's a government thing that's digital to go, so they can give you 5K, don't they, towards the creating the business plan.
I'd love to confirm that's a yes. I actually don't know. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I have.
Excellent.
Sanjay mentioned that to me as well. We all know Sanjay.
So yeah, I mean, I think we've got quite a good bit of detail there for everyone to use to help build their business and how to get around that whole digital skills gap. More people that can invest in their talent pipeline and grow from within and fill that gap with people like apprentices and different schemes that are available to you. I would say definitely leverage those. There was another bit as well. If you've got some seriously ambitious apprentices, for instance, I mean, they can even turn their apprenticeships into degrees.
Yep.
You can get degrees for AI, for instance, by doing these apprenticeships. Honestly, if you want to learn more, I'd say come and speak to us. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've been doing a lot of work with partners because capacity is the major issue they're facing.
Yes.
So we've been doing a lot of learning plans, how to upskill from within and do it the quickest, easiest way.
Yep.
without sacrificing actual work. If you're one of Ingram's partners, come speak to us. We'll be able to point you in the right direction on how to do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end, pretty much, doesn't it? Have we got another joke, or
We do.
have we just lost all
We've
faith?
got one more joke, and I was going to say that was the reason why you lost train of thought before, because you're wondering where this next one was.
I hope it's a half decent one at least.
Well, I can't make any promises, but here we go. What do you call an old snowman? No, water.
I said puddle.
You did say puddle, you're on the right line.
Water.
And there we have it. The 5 probably worst jokes I could have told this Christmas. That I'm going to probably
Right,
take.
this is what you get for 2021. Mike's worst jokes.
No, but yeah, that brings us to a close during this podcast, doesn't it?
Gives us
It
the close to the
certainly
year
does.
as well.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank everybody.
Yes.
Nice meeting you all.
So if you do want to connect with us, do find us on LinkedIn. You'll find all our details on here, with the exception of Armando. We will work hard to get that connected on there for the next podcast. But feel free to reach out to us and we can put you in direct touch with Armando. If you have any topics that you'd like us to discuss in the future, please send them across to us. We will endeavour to put them onto the agendas. And that's it, guys. So bye for this year.
Merry
Cheers.
Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.